All right, so in the new office, thought we'd do a little playing with AI. We'll see how this goes. So we're gonna play with that whole idea of selling books or organizing books, creating an API, maybe doing something else on that. We'll see. Play with the front end a bit, but we'll hopefully see how AI can help us generate a lot of code a lot faster. Alright, so we're going to start with a new project, and I'm actually going to start this at the database level. So we're going to do a SQL Server database project. This allows us to publish our changes. Yes, there's a lot of other options out there. We're going to start with that one as an example. We'll call it bookdb. Cool. There we go. Hooray. Right. When I'm designing something, when I'm building something from the ground up, I like to start with the database. I actually start at the beginning looking at the data and going, what are we trying to show the user? What does that data look like? How does that data interact with each other? How does that data relate to each other? And draw that back then to a data model. So we're going to have books, we'll have authors, maybe we'll have some sellers, we'll see how this goes, we'll play with it. But I want to start with the database, and especially when we're using AI, being able to start with the database and have AI build on top of that is really effective. So here we go, we've got our base database project set up, basic solution, nothing fancy. We're going to add a table here. So we'll go add, new item, we'll select a table. I also do have CoPilot running, and you'll see CoPilot add some suggestions. And then we'll also see how ChatGPT, and this is going to be using the 4.0 version, can help things. So first table, books, right? We can call it book, we can call it books, whether you pluralize or not, up to you. But I'm gonna call it books. I like the plural today. All right, we've got, ours starts us off with an integer. There we go. We're gonna add an identity. There we go, you can see stuff. Yeah, we'll take a title there. We are going to need an author, but we'll come back to that. Yeah, date published. What else is it suggesting? ISBN, excellent. Page count, maybe, sure, interesting. Cover image, yeah, we'll skip that. Let's call that good for the moment, right? There's CoPilot generating a lot of stuff for us very quickly. Now, obviously, if we're going to follow normalized data, we don't want to have the author repeated a lot. We'll come back to that in just a moment. And actually, we'll hit save on that. Let's add another table of authors. Let's get, there we go. All I did was hit a space for that. Got the name. No real suggestions, but really what else do we need but an ID and a name? Let's come back to this. We'll remove that. And you can see by keeping both tabs open, it's looking at things. And then we can do constraint. Oh, look at that. CoPilot to the rescue. There's a nice little foreign key constraint there. We can do a constraint. Yeah, we should have a page count greater than 0. That's a good one. Sure, there we go. I have no idea if ISBNs should be there. Yeah, can't be published in the future. And we should have a length greater than 0. Look at that. That's a reasonably robust little table right there, ready to go. Have a nice time. So we'll save. both of these. And then we're going to take these. Let's see. Do we want to? We have books. We have authors. We should have a publisher. We should have publishers in our database. Let's add a publishers table. Come down here. Publisher name. Let's see what else it suggests. No other suggestions. Totally fine. I don't have anything else to add other than a publisher, so that's fine. Let's come back to our books table and let's add there's our publisher. Look at that. Nice. Let's see if we can add that constraint. Beautiful. Hey, things are looking all right. Now, why do we have an error here? Oh, we need a comma. There we go. And we need a comma there as well. Fantastic. One more there. That's pretty excellent. We've got 3 tables ready to go. Nice third normal form. Looking pretty happy. Fantastic. We have some nice constraints there. We could add some constraints to this one. Okay, add a birth date. Do we care about the birth date? No, let's not do that. Let's not worry about that. Constraint, yes, we definitely want the author name greater than 0. Fantastic. And let's do the same with the publishers. There we go. Great. Authors, books, publishers, happiness. So we've got 3 tables now. Now, if we're going to move from these, we want our database. We'll use Entity Framework. So we'll set up a repository for these. I really like repositories, and your mileage may vary, but for this one, we'll go do that. We'll set up a repository, and then we'll set up an API that can use that repository. So for our next thing, let's add a new project here. And this is just going to be a class library. Already got it here. All right. So we'll call it the books repository. If I sound tired, it's because I am. I just moved yesterday. Still unpacking, but decided to take a break, do something else. All right. Fantastic. We'll get rid of you. We're not going to need you here. We're going to add Entity Framework. There we go. All right, and we'll also add, should have just added Entity Framework SQL Server. We're going to pretend we're doing it on SQL Server. I don't even know if we're going to deploy this, but there we go. We'll check what's going on. Do we have any updates? Azure Identity. We'll just update to the latest there, just for good practices. Nothing else is vulnerable. Fantastic. Close that out. All right. So now we want to generate our repository, our database context, our repository classes for these 3 things. We can do this all by hand, write all the methods, or this is where we can start leveraging ChatGPT for doing the heavy lifting for us, or doing the grunt work for us, I think is called. So that'll be the next thing we do. All right, so we've got ChatGPT up on another window. When you're using ChatGPT, think of it as you're working with a very smart 10-year-old. This is the way I think about this. It can do a lot. It won't get everything right. It may do half the task and get lost. It may make some things up for you. So you do want to check things. but also the more detailed instructions you can give it, the better you can do, the better it will do. So this is a style of prompt that I've found success with. Your mileage may vary. You can switch it up as you like, but I'll show you what I like to do here. So using the following SQL, and we're going to paste in the SQL for these tables. Please create a database context class as well as repository classes for each table. Okay. Database context. Actually, we need the model classes as well. Model classes as well as the database class for each table that will work with entity framework. Please ensure there are CRUD methods for each object type. Please ensure that all repository methods are asynchronous. Please be sure to include all necessary attributes. There we go. In the model classes. Something like this. So really what we're giving it is a framework of what we want. We want the model classes for each table. We want repositories for each of those models. And we want it to work with Entity Framework. We want it to apply all the necessary decorations, the attributes, and make sure that we have CRUD, at least the CRUD methods, and they're all asynchronous. So let's see how this goes. So we'll take our authors table. I'm copying this over in a new window. You're not going to see that, but I'm just going to paste it in here. Just have the authors. We have the publishers. And we have the books. And let's see what happens. So it's thinking. Yep, it says make sure you get EF core. Looks like it's building out our DB context. Here's our classes. There we go. And it even gave us some examples. This is kind of fantastic. One thing I overlooked, I'm tired. I didn't give it a namespace. We should have everything in a namespace. So I'm going to say, thank you. Please revise the previous code, but use the namespace books repository. There we go. So we're getting regenerated here real quick. And off we go. We can see as it's scrolling, we can see the attributes have been added for data validation, other things. We've got interfaces, we've got our classes. Fantastic. Our next step, once this is done, is going to be a little bit of copy paste, refactor, off we go. Nope. It's thinking. There we go. And we're done. Great. So we're going to come back to Studio here. And I'm going to add class. And I'm just going to call this books DB context for the moment. We're we're going to scroll back up to our repository, and I'm just going to scroll back up here. I'm just going to hit this copy code button. Come over here, Control A, Control V. Done. Simple as that. Right. Now here it called it library context. Okay. We're going to rename this books DB context. Happiness. Right. Add a little semicolon there. Obviously, we don't have our other models yet. We'll get to that. Just before we do so, though, we're going to add a folder. I like to add a folder for our models. And I like to add a folder for our repositories. I like folders. They keep things tidy. You can do as you like. Coming back over, come down to our model classes. So it checked everything into one. That's fine. We'll refactor that in just a moment here. So we'll do this. We'll take our first class, and we're just going to call this author. Paste it in there. Sort that out. Now, Visual Studio's got some great refactoring built into it. Control period. We can just move this to publisher.cs. That. We'll just do the same for books. Very nice. Control RG. Cleans up your usings there. So we've got our author, we've got our book, and we've got publisher. All nice and sorted. And our context is looking a whole lot better now. Look at that, right? Bootstrapping stuff up pretty quickly. We're going to close these out just to clean things up. And we're going to go back to ChatGPT now. So repository interfaces, very happy here. We're going to copy the code again. Repositories, we're going to add a folder for interfaces. Add class. Do I author repository? Actually, you know what? I'll show you something else. We're just going to call this class 1. We've got the code copied. We're going to paste it in there. Obviously, class 1 doesn't make a lot of sense there. But I'll show you another fun trick with this. So in this case, we're just going to extract author repository over to its own file. This one. Now, iBook repository is the only thing left. And we can just rename the file to iBook repository. Everything's nice and tidy. Again, Control RG to do that. Everyone else is looking real nice there. If we wanted to, we could update this namespace to interfaces. I'll leave it for the moment. I'm okay with it just being in the repositories namespace. So now we come down to our classes. Again, copy and paste. Close that up. Add class. Again, we'll just call it class 1. You don't need to do any type. Let's not do any extra typing. That's silly. That's why we have ChatGPT, right? Once again, we're going to just move it over, right? Oh, we renamed our library context. Let's redo that real quick. And we call this books DB context. If you weren't following along, if you don't know, find and replace, Control Shift F, Control Shift H. H is the replace, F is the find. I'm going to do that. We're going to change that to current project. And I'm just going to hit replace all because I feel like that's a pretty good life choice. There we go. Control period. Move it again. control period, rename. Control RG to tidy things up. And we have repositories now that give us all of our stuff. Now, you notice there's no error handling to any of this. There's nothing else. We've got base code though. Pretty simple, pretty done. And it also gave us some examples of how to use it. We'll come back to that. But we want to make this a little more robust. If I were smarter and more on my game, I would have told it to include error handling in this. But instead, we're going to take the books repository class. We're going to come back to ChatGPT and say, I always say please. I don't know if you have to say please. I feel like I'm having a conversation with a junior developer. I like to say please. Please revise this class to include proper error handling. Paste the class in, hit go. It says sure. Look at that. There we go. It's including multiple things. Look at that. It's including multiple exception types along with error messages. This is awesome. I don't know that I would have come up with these. Now, I have not inspected any of those, but we're going to come back to Studio here. Control A, Control V. Look at that. You will find that ChatGPT often includes extra namespaces that you don't need. Not sure why it does it. It's easy enough to get rid of. But here now we have a class that looks, this is looking pretty all right. That's fantastic. So here we go. We've got now tables, repositories done. Excellent. We'll move on to the next thing here in just a moment. All right, we're back. We have a repository. We need to prove it works. We need tests. I'm terrible at writing tests. Definitely not my strong suit. But ChatGPT, again, coming to the rescue. So we'll come back down to ChatGPT here. I'm going to say, hey, using the following classes, create suites of unit tests using the MS Test V2 framework. So we're going to be using, you can specify NUnit or whatever you're using, right? Please use, we're going to tell it to use an in-memory database. I really like this if we're testing database stuff against like SQL Server, Postgres could probably work too. I really like using the in-memory database for my unit tests. I don't have to mock up a lot of things. I feel like it gives a cleaner and more accurate representation of what's actually going to happen. Please use an in-memory database. Fantastic. So we're going to take, let's see, book repository here. We're just going to do it for the one. Again, just pasted it in there, right? Whole thing, wholesale, not even filtering it. Go, off we go. It says, hey, fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to need to set up a new project. Excellent. We're going to need to set up a few things. Cool. We'll take care of that. We can do that with a couple of clicks in Visual Studio. And you can see we're already generating, ChatGPT, we, can't say we, ChatGPT is already generating a whole bunch of unit tests for us. There we go. All right. Was this conversation helpful so far? Yeah. It's I'm pretty happy with it. So we're gonna scroll back up here. Now we've got a couple ways that in Studio that we can create our test projects. For me, the easiest way, pick a method, create unit tests. This is why I'm using the TestBT framework, because that's what I've got installed right now. I'm gonna leave all the defaults. Have a nice time, because we're gonna overwrite them real quick here. But we have this project. Fantastic. Real quick, we are going to manage NuGet packages. Let's see, we're going to need to add the end framework core in memory. Get that, accept. Let's see, we've got some updates. I like to do just all the housekeeping real quick, nice and easy. Get everything sorted. There we go. Right. Obviously I'm using Visual Studio, it's a C# project. Your mileage may vary depending on what you're using there. So we'll come back to our repository test class. We'll hit copy. Come back to Studio. Paste it in there. Do a little housekeeping real quick. Nice. Oh, CoPilot's trying to jump in there. We're going to hit escape on that one. So, books DB context does not take a constructor. Okay, right? We didn't set up our context all the way, right? But you can see here, what we have is a whole host of tests that are basically ready to go. Yeah, we can add a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of, oh, like here, we'll just generate the constructor in books DB context. Let's see what that looks like here for us. Studio does so many good things for us. It's wonderful. And one of the features I like of the newer languages, the primary constructor, just tidying up the code even further. Fantastic. There we go. We have that. Books.count. This is where ChatGPT isn't as successful, or didn't give us 100% there, but that's okay. I'm very okay adding 2 parentheses for the price of what we just did there. And we have some tests that in theory can be run. Now, I'm not going to worry about running them or proving this out at the moment, but I wanted to show in this example how we can generate a whole lot of code very quickly using CoPilot, using ChatGPT, and letting things run. Now, I broke this into a couple steps. In your prompts, and I've done this in the past, you can actually combine this all into one and say, hey, use these SQL tables, generate my models, generate my repositories, generate my repository tests, and then go into generate my API methods, right? If we're doing RESTful APIs for these, we need an API with controllers for each one of these as well. We'll do that in a moment. All right, so I've gone through, I have updated our repositories for error handling, generated the other test classes for things. So let's add an API project. Add new project. ASP.NET Core Web API. Fantastic. Call it Books API because we're very creative. We're just going to leave all the defaults as they are. Fantastic. Okay. got our API. One of the things I like to do, not really related to this, but I do like to organize things. So we're going to create a backend folder. And we're going to dump our database and our repository and our tests up there. Get them out of the way. All right. We got the default weather forecast controller. Get rid of that. We're going to get rid of that. And there we go. And we've got our basic program there. Fantastic. So now, using our repositories, let's create some controllers based on those repositories. So once again, using the following class, please create and you can get very specific in C#, or if you wanted to use that, but maybe you're doing something in a different language. I don't know why you would at this point, but feel free to tell it, be as specific as possible what you're trying to do. I just realized I'm not showing you my ChatGPT at the moment. So here, yeah, using the following class, please create a REST API controller in C#. Please be sure to include all necessary attributes and declarations. Please ensure all methods are asynchronous. Please ensure all routes are... Let's say if all routes are documented correctly. So I have not done as much work with creating APIs as with other things. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe we'll learn something on the bit here. So we'll come back to our repository real quick. We'll just take our books repository, give it that whole bunch of code. Oh, we can do one other thing. Also, please include any updates to that will be needed. That's true for this. Updates to program.cs that will be needed. We know that we're going to need to update program.cs with our injections, for DI, whatnot. Let's have ChatGPT figure it out. We want to tell it what namespace to use. Please use the... I realize I'm toggling back and forth and I'm not showing you all. I apologize that. Please use the books API namespace. There we go. Let's see what happens. We get a books controller. That's looking pretty fantastic. I'm going to go in reverse order. Let's start with the program. So builder, create builder. Okay, yeah, we've got all of that, but really what we're looking here is the books DB, right, and the repository. It's really these two things that we're looking for. You'll see that everything else is already in the in programs. So after add controllers, what happens here? Oh, we get an error. What do we need? Oh, we don't have a reference. Add project reference. That will probably help things. Fantastic. Add that. Great. Now, notice that this selected to use the in-memory database. Typically we use a SQL Server, but it made a choice. I'm going to let it go for the moment because we don't really care what we're using. And if I can actually move my mouse and get it to work correctly, we'll see here. Oh, that's right. We need to, we'll just add that project, or add that package real quick. Open memory. Solve a problem there. Or is this just one? Oh, thank you. There we go. Hey, fantastic. We're now ready to rock. So programs is ready to go. All right. We need to add a controller. We'll come up here, we'll copy this, back to Studio, and thought we had, new class, cool. Seriously, call it class 1, don't really care. Do that, we'll just start cleanup. We're going to just rename the file. Look at that. Few simple clicks. Everything's nice and tidy. Very happy. We've got an injection there. All right, we're going to use our primary constructor just to keep our code base a little cleaner. And we can see, not only do we have our HTTP GET, got this, for get all, right? You can see that our repository moves to the controller. So for those who aren't familiar with C#, this will come back to API/books. So API/books will allow us to get and get all. We can see here that we have a get where we place an ID, and we'll get a book for an ID. And we can notice that we're getting the XML comments. I love that. That's something that for developers can add a lot of, can be very handy. But it gave us a whole lot of stuff, a really good place to start. Is this perfect? I don't know. I doubt it. Did we just generate a whole lot of code and do a whole lot in a very short period of time? Yes, we did. This got us probably 85% of the way of where we need to be. For a lot of development, we're doing the same things over and over. We're, it's our CRUD operations. And I tell my teams to really think about what are the CRUD operations that we need to work with. And we can get a lot of this boilerplate stuff generated very quickly using CoPilot and ChatGPT. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. Please give me your comments, give me your feedback, and wish you the best. Cheers.